I'm Carlos Devin Cole, 28 years old, Senior Communications Strategist at the National Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., a title that sounds impressive until you realize my parents still introduce me to their church friends as our son who does computer stuff. That Tuesday, I was standing in our kitchen in Southeast D.C., the same kitchen where my mother, Brenda Cole, used to quiz me on Bible verses every Sunday morning. The same kitchen where my father, Raymond Cole, once told me a government job wasn't real work unless your back hurt at the end of the day. The invitation in my hand? Cream-colored cardstock. Gold-embossed lettering. A formal seal at the top that most people only see on television. The White House Communicators Summit. And I, Carlos Devin Cole, son of a retired postal worker and a school cafeteria manager, had been personally selected to represent my institute. Not just attend. Present. In front of the nation's top policy voices. Live. Nationally broadcast. My hands were literally shaking when I set that card down on the kitchen counter. "Mama," I said, my voice catching. "I need y'all to be there. This is everything." Brenda didn't even look up from her crossword puzzle. "Baby, that's wonderful," she said in that flat tone that meant she'd already moved on mentally. "Raymond," I tried again. My father was watching a basketball game, volume up too loud. He turned, looked at me, looked at the card, nodded once. "We'll see, son." That should have been my first warning. "We'll see" in the Cole household never meant yes. It always meant no. 3 days before the summit, I sat across from my best friend and co-worker, Deja Fontaine, at our favorite lunch spot, Mama Zora's Soul Kitchen on 14th Street. The smell of cornbread and collard greens usually calmed my nerves. "Not today. You sent them the official itinerary?" Deja asked, pushing her glasses up with one finger, her natural hair pulled back in a neat puff. "Emailed it. Texted a picture. Left a printed copy on the fridge." Deja set her fork down. She knew my parents. She'd known them since sophomore year of Howard University, where she first watched Brenda wave me off at move-in like she was dropping me at summer camp, not college. "Carlos." She said my name slowly. "Prepare yourself." "They'll come," I said. "This is the White House. Nobody skips the White House." But something gnawed at me, a memory I kept pushing down. My college graduation, Howard University, 2018. I walked across that stage magna cum laude, diploma in hand, scanning the crowd for two specific faces. My roommate Tell's whole family was there, aunts, cousins, a grandmother in a wheelchair. My advisor, Dr. Patricia Okafor, was cheering louder than anyone. My parents showed up 45 minutes late. Missed my name being called entirely. My mother's excuse? "The parking was terrible, baby. But we got here, didn't we?" My father patted my shoulder and said, "Big crowd. You looked good up there." He hadn't seen me walk. He was guessing. I swallowed that memory with a sip of sweet tea. "They'll come," I repeated. Deja looked at me with those eyes, warm but honest. The eyes of someone who loved me enough not to lie. "I hope so," she whispered. "I genuinely hope so." 2 nights before the summit, my phone rang at 9:47 p.m. I was rehearsing my presentation, index cards spread across my apartment floor, my cat Roosevelt pacing between them like he was editing my work. It was my Aunt Celestine, my mother's older sister, the one who lived in Baltimore and called every holiday without fail. "Baby," she said, and something in her voice made me sit down. "Your mama called me tonight." "Okay." "She and your daddy, they're not going." The room got very quiet. "What?" She said they have the Andersons' anniversary dinner that Saturday. "Been planned for 6 months," she said. "Raymond already RSVP'd. She said you'd understand." The Andersons. Curtis and Phyllis Anderson. They're neighbors of 12 years. People who threw an anniversary party every single year without fail. People my parents had already attended 4 celebrations for. "Aunt Celestine," I said carefully, measuring every word, "this is a nationally televised event. At the White House." "I know, baby." I'm presenting. On camera. I know. I told them about this months ago. Carlos. Her voice broke just slightly. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't want you to find out the day of. Thought you deserved to know now. After I hung up, I sat on my apartment floor for a long time. Roosevelt curled into my lap. Outside, DC hummed with its usual nighttime energy, sirens, laughter, buses exhaling at stops. I didn't cry. I was past crying about this. I called Deja instead. She picked up on the first ring. They're not coming, I said. One long pause. Carlos. I'm on my way. Deja arrived at my apartment with a plastic bag from the corner store, Sprite, chips, and a jar of queso, and the energy of someone ready to go to war on my behalf. She sat on my couch and listened while I laid it all out. Every dismissal. Every late arrival. Every we'll see that meant goodbye. Remember my promotion party? I asked. The one at your office where your boss Director Hargrove gave you that award in front of the whole department. My parents thought it was optional. Like a happy hour. My dad said, and I quote, Carlos, you know we don't do office stuff. That's your world, not ours. Deja's jaw tightened. Your world. Like they built a wall. Everything I've achieved is on the other side of it, and they're perfectly comfortable not crossing. She was quiet for a moment, swirling a chip in the queso. Then she looked at me, direct and certain. You know what I think this is. Tell me. I think they never expected you to get this far. And now that you have, they don't know how to show up for the version of you that exists. They're still waiting for you to come back to the world they understand. I let that land. It landed hard. So what do I do? You go Saturday, she said firmly. You walk in that room. You present. And you do it for the Carlos who walked across that graduation stage without them watching. You do it for him. I looked at my index cards scattered on the floor. My presentation on policy communication in underserved communities. A topic I chose because of Southeast DC. Because of the neighborhood that raised me. Because of people like my parents, whose voices were never in the rooms where decisions got made. The irony was almost unbearable. I'll be there, Deja added. Front row. Saturday arrived like a verdict. I was up at 5 a.m. suit pressed, a deep navy blue, because Deja said it read well on camera. White shirt. A burnt orange tie that my mentor, Director Hargrove, once told me was a power move in this city. My phone had 3 notifications. One from Deja, I'm proud of you. Now go be great. One from Aunt Celestine, praying for you, baby. Shine today. One from my college roommate Tell, break a leg, bro history in the making. Nothing from Raymond. Nothing from Brenda. I stood at my bathroom mirror for a long moment. Really looked at myself. 32-year-old Carlos. First-generation college graduate. First person in my family to work in federal policy spaces. The kid who read encyclopedias at the library on Sundays because his neighborhood school didn't have enough textbooks. They don't have to be here, I told my reflection. You are here. That's enough. It didn't feel like enough. But I said it again anyway. The town car arrived at 7:15 a.m. As we crossed the bridge into Northwest, the Capitol Dome came into view, glowing gold in the morning light. My chest tightened, not with anxiety, with something I couldn't quite name yet. At the security checkpoint, I showed my credentials. The officer, a broad man named Agent Douglas, based on his badge, looked at my ID, looked at me, and nodded with a respect that felt unexpectedly personal. Mr. Cole. Welcome. You're presenting third today. Third. In front of everyone. I walked through those gates and felt the weight of every late night, every dismissal, every parking lot excuse settle into my bones, and then, somehow, lift. The White House East Wing conference space had been transformed. Cameras. Lighting rigs. A live feed running to C-SPAN and 3 major networks. Rows of seats filled with policy directors, senators' chiefs of staff, foreign ambassadors, and journalists whose bylines I'd read since college. I found Deja immediately, bright yellow blazer, front row, waving like she was at a cookout. I almost laughed. "You look incredible," she whispered as I approached. "I feel like I might pass out." "You won't. I won't allow it." Director Hargrove materialized at my elbow. My boss, 61 years old, silver-haired, the kind of black man who'd fought for every inch of space he occupied and made it look effortless. He gripped my shoulder. "Carlos. Big room today." "Yes, sir. You earned this room. Remember that." The first two presenters were good, polished, data-heavy, forgettable in the way that competence without passion often is. Then my name was announced. I walked to that podium and looked out at the room. Cameras. Hundreds of faces. A live feed that was, at that exact moment, reaching televisions, phones, and laptops across the entire country. I thought about my parents at the Andersons' anniversary dinner, probably on their second plate of food by now. And then, I let it go. I opened my mouth. I grew up in Southeast DC, 4 miles from this building. The policies made in rooms like this one shaped every aspect of my childhood, the quality of my school, the safety of my street, the options available to my parents. And yet, the people most affected by those policies almost never get to be in this room. Today, I'm here to change that. The room went completely still. And then, applause. Real, rising applause. I don't remember finishing my presentation. I remember the feeling, the way the words flowed like I'd been carrying them my whole life, just waiting for the right room. I remember a senator in the third row leaning forward with her pen moving. I remember a camera operator giving me a subtle thumbs up. When I stepped away from that podium, Deja was on her feet. But what happened next, I did not see coming. A White House staffer in a dark suit approached me before I could even reach my seat. Young woman, early 30s, natural hair pinned back, a small earpiece visible. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "I'm Simone Webb, executive coordinator for today's event. The president watched your segment from the residence. He'd like to meet you." The world tilted. "I'm sorry." "The president, sir. He'd like to shake your hand. He's going to come down briefly for a photo opportunity with select presenters, and you're on the short list. Live cameras will still be rolling." I turned to find Deja. Her mouth was open. "Go," she mouthed. "Go." I smoothed my jacket, straightened my tie, the burnt orange one, and followed Simone Webb through a side corridor, past 2 more security checkpoints, into a smaller reception area with tall windows overlooking the rose garden. The room had maybe 12 people in it. Senators, a 4-star general, the director of the EPA. And then the door opened, and he walked in. The President of the United States. In person. Smaller than he appeared on TV, somehow, but filling the space completely. His eyes swept the room with the practiced ease of a man who'd spent decades learning how to make every person feel seen. He moved through the line. Handshakes. Brief words. Getting closer. My heart was a drum in my chest. He reached me. Up close, the president was warmer than his press images suggested, laugh lines deep, eyes genuinely attentive. He extended his hand and I took it. "Carlos Cole," he said. He knew my name. Southeast DC kid who just gave the most compelling presentation I've heard in this building in 2 years. "Where have you been hiding?" "I wasn't hiding, sir," I heard myself say. "I was working." He laughed. A real laugh. The cameras, still rolling, caught all of it. "That's the right answer," he said. He held the handshake a beat longer, the way practice leaders do when they want a moment to register. "Your point about proximity to power, that those most affected by policy must be architects of it, we need more of that thinking in these halls. I mean that." "Thank you, sir. I mean that too." A photographer snapped. A camera operator moved in closer. Simone Webb, standing just behind the president, gave me the smallest nod, the nod of someone saying this is real, this is happening. And it was happening. Carlos Devin Cole, son of Raymond and Brenda, Southeast DC, shaking hands with the President of the United States on live national television. For miles from the house where I grew up. In the building that shaped my neighborhood without ever asking my neighborhood's name. I thought of the index cards on my apartment floor. I thought of Deja in her yellow blazer. I thought of Aunt Celestine, probably watching from Baltimore right now. I thought of Dr. Okafor, who wrote my first recommendation letter. I thought of Tell. I thought, briefly, of an anniversary dinner on the other side of the city. And then I let that thought go too. Because this moment, this one was mine. Fully and completely mine. I didn't check my phone until after the reception ended, nearly 2 hours after the handshake. Deja grabbed my arm the second I stepped back into the main hall, pulling me into a hug so tight I felt my spine adjust. 847 texts, she said into my shoulder. What? She pulled back and held up her own phone, showing me a screenshot she'd taken of my mother's Facebook. Someone in our neighborhood had posted a screenshot of the live broadcast, me and the President, mid-handshake, burned orange tie catching the light, and tagged Brenda Cole directly. The comments were already in the thousands. Is that Brenda's son? Wait, Carlos. The boy from Fairlawn. Sister Brenda, your son is on TV with the President right now. And then my own phone, which I'd kept on silent all day, began to vibrate against my palm. I unlocked it. 847 notifications. Missed calls, 11 from Brenda, 6 from Raymond. Texts from church members, neighbors, Raymond's co-worker Big Earl, my mother's prayer group, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The most recent text from my mother, sent 4 minutes ago, read, Carlos Devin, call me right now, everyone is calling the house. I stared at that message for a long time. Below it, my father's text, sent 2 minutes after. Son. We saw you. We're proud. Call us. Deja watched my face. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. I slid my phone into my jacket pocket. I'm going to enjoy this moment, I said. All of it. The parts one earned and the parts that are just grace. And then. I paused. Then I'll call. She nodded slowly. That's healthy, Carlos. I know. I straightened my tie. I'm learning. I called them that evening from my apartment, Roosevelt in my lap, the DC skyline doing its slow purple to black fade outside my window. My mother answered before the first ring finished. Carlos. Mama. Silence. Then, and I will never forget this as long as I live, my mother, Brenda Elaine Cole, who did not cry at my college graduation, who had never once told me she was proud without adding a but, started crying. Not soft crying. Deep, heaving, something breaking loose crying. Baby, she managed, I saw you up there. I saw you shaking his hand. And everybody was calling and saying, is that your son, Brenda? And I kept saying yes, that's my son, that's my Carlos. Mama. My voice was steady. I needed it to be. Where were y'all? A pause. We were at the Andersons, she whispered. Raymond had already confirmed. I know. I kept my voice level. Calm. Not angry. Something harder than anger. Honest. I know where you were. I'm asking you to sit with that for a minute. Another silence, longer this time. My father's voice came on. He'd been on the extension the whole time. Son. I owe you an apology. That stopped me cold. Raymond Cole did not apologize. It wasn't in his vocabulary. I'd watched that man return a meal at a restaurant rather than admit he'd ordered the wrong thing. Go ahead, Dad. I should have been there, he said. His voice was rough. Like the words were fighting him on the way out. I keep thinking about you up there, in that building, and I should have been there, Carlos. I let my father's words sit in the air between us. This was the moment I'd imagined 100 times. The confession, the apology, the acknowledgement. And now that it was here, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph. Not vindication. Just sadness. Quiet, clean sadness for all the years it took us to get here. Dad, I said finally, I need you both to understand something. This wasn't the first time. The graduation. The promotion dinner. The conference last spring where I spoke on the panel. You drove 40 minutes in the wrong direction and missed the whole thing. Carlos, my mother started. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because I need you to hear it. Every time, there was a reason. Every time, it made sense to you. But from where I was standing, every single time, I was looking out into that crowd and you weren't there. The line was so quiet I could hear my mother breathing. I built this career by myself, I continued. Not despite you, I don't want to say it like that. But without you in the room. And I learned to be okay with that. I had to learn to be okay with that. My father cleared his throat. Son, your mother and I, we don't always understand your world. I know, Dad. But that shouldn't have been an excuse. No, I agreed. It shouldn't have. What I didn't say, what I'd realized somewhere between the podium and the president's handshake, was that their absence had sharpened me. Every empty seat had become fuel. Every missed moment had pushed me to build something so undeniable that the whole country would eventually see it, whether they were in the room or not. I didn't say that. Not yet. Some truths need time before they can be gifts. The next morning, my phone lit up with something I hadn't expected. A text from Simone Webb, the White House staffer. Mr. Cole, the President's office has flagged your presentation for potential inclusion in an upcoming domestic policy initiative. Would you be available for a follow-up meeting at the Institute this week? Director Hargrove has already been contacted. I read it 3 times. Then I called Deja. Are you reading this? I already know, she said. Hargrove called me at 7 this morning. Carlos, they want to build a working group around your framework. Your framework. The one you've been developing for 3 years that nobody upstairs wanted to fund. I sat down on my couch. Roosevelt immediately claimed my lap. Deja. I know. This is real. This is very real. By noon, the clip of the handshake had been viewed 4.2 million times across platforms. My institute's website crashed twice from traffic. 3 journalists had already requested comment. Howard University's alumni office sent a congratulatory email with my name in the subject line. And my Aunt Celestine, who never posted anything online, had changed her Facebook profile picture to the screenshot of me and the president, with the caption, "That's my nephew. God is not sleeping." I laughed for the first time all weekend. A real laugh, from somewhere deep. That afternoon, I drove to Southeast. Parked on my old block. Sat in the car and looked at the house I grew up in, the chipped porch railing my father never fixed, the window box my mother planted petunias in every spring without fail. 2 people who loved me in the only ways they'd been taught. People who'd built a life with their hands and couldn't always reach across the gap to mine. I'd stopped waiting for them to cross it. I was building a bridge instead. 6 months later, I'm standing in a conference room on the 4th floor of the National Policy Institute, and the walls look different than they used to. There are 12 people in this room. A working group, officially chartered by the White House Domestic Policy Council, tasked with developing a framework for community-centered federal communication. My framework. My name is on the charter document. Deja is to my left, now co-leading the initiative with a title bump and a raise she absolutely deserved. Simone Webb is patched in from DC via video. Dr. Okafor drove down from Maryland to consult on the academic components and hugged me so long at the door that we both got a little embarrassed about it. My parents came to the launch event last month. Both of them. On time. My mother wore her best church dress. My father wore the tie I bought him 2 Christmases ago that he'd never worn. They sat in the 3rd row and I watched my dad's face when Director Hargrove described my work to the room, watched something shift in him, something unlock that had maybe been stuck for years. After, my mother pulled me aside near the refreshment table. "I owe you more than an apology," she said quietly. "I owe you years of showing up." "You're here now, Mama." "I'm here now," she agreed. It wasn't a fairy tale fix. There were still conversations ahead, hard ones, honest ones. But something real had started. Something that felt less like forgiveness and more like growth. For all of us. I think about the boy who drove himself to every milestone, who learned to need the empty seats less and less. I'm grateful for him. He got me here. Now I'm here. In this room. Building something that matters. And this time, people I love are watching.